So today, American Magic have finally done it. The first team to carry out proper two-boat testing of equipment with actual test foils mounted on two separate AC40s for A/B testing, tuning runs, race run situations out in Barcelona. Now, this is pretty significant because two-boat testing has been banned in the America's Cup for several iterations. And the reason for that is to cost save, effectively, to stop teams running two-boat programs. And it's ironic in many ways that the avenue that has reopened the ability for teams to two-boat test has been through the AC40. The AC40 was brought into the America's Cup as a way for kind of less well-financed teams to get a test platform for relatively cheap and still be able to utilise it for the Youth America's Cup and the Women's America's Cup.
Tell us what changes we will see that will make it more accessible, that will facilitate more boats on the start line.
Good question, and we always talk in the America's Cup that the cost of participation is one of the big barriers of entry. The AC40 we talked about is going to be a big player in this next cup.
But the way the rules have written, your LEQ12, that stands for less or equal to 12 metre, so that's the test platform you can pretty much go wild with and build kind of any type of components in whatever configuration you want. You're only limited by how many foils you can mount on it, how many masts, how many etc. So the number of pieces of equipment, but you can basically test what you want on these platforms. Now that equipment could also be mounted on an AC40, and you can basically have a multi-purpose AC40. It's a one design racer, but then out of competition you can take it out of one design mode and test it. And that seemed a pretty uncontroversial and simple idea for further cost savings. However, the way the rule was written, and this is what I speculated on back in February, rules are actually written, specifically the technical regulations and how they limit the number of self-made LEQ12 parts, seems to open up another option: multiple LEQ12 testing. As long as they are not mounted to an LEQ12 hull, so as long as they're not mounted to an LEQ12, like an out-of-class AC40 hull, you can mount them on as many different boats as you want, and that allows you to split your quota across several in-class AC40s, and the boats remain, these AC40s remain in class due to a little clever rule writing. And this has only become apparent relatively late in the cycle, so it's possible or probable that some of the earlier teams to jump on constructing their own LEQ12 completely proprietary test platforms would have made that decision without the full knowledge of what was possible running a two-boat AC40 program. So if we look at the actual rules, and the class rules of the AC40 have only come out relatively recently. This is version 1.1 with a few updates in April, but I think the first AC40 class rules came out a month or so, March time, something like that, so not long before. So relatively late on. And in those class rules, there are two sections, one on permitted modifications, that's relatively normal to have in class rules, but then they have in-class modifications. And now might be a bit naive, but I don't know any class rules which have a section which details changes that you can make to the boat which keep the boat in class but not race legal. So a bit of an odd grey area they've introduced in the rules so that these hulls can stay in class, which then allows you to mount LEQ12 test equipment on more than one hull without turning those hulls and all the other parts such as mast, sails, etc. into LEQ12 parts as well. So super interesting and a bit of a workaround. And yeah, I'm going to be keeping a really keen eye on American Magic, but a significant step change for the America's Cup, and certainly a decent helping of irony that the AC40 test platform, which was introduced, introduced for the Women Youth America's Cup and for the preliminary regattas, but also kind of publicised as a cost-saving measure, has actually been the vehicle upon which the teams can now carry out two-boat testings. But not all teams can carry out two-boat testing using their AC40s, because some teams only bought one and built an LEQ12, possibly not knowing the full extent of what was possible with these AC40s, because the class rules hadn't yet been announced. And this has proved a little bit controversial already with the AC40s, in that I don't think it was fully appreciated by all the teams that you could buy more than one, or more than one boat would be allocated to each team. And that's already been the subject of an arbitration between Luna Rossa and American Magic. And with the first AC40 regatta coming up in just over a month's time, it'll be interesting looking back at the legacy of this boat and whether it goes on to become its own one design class and is known for, creating a gateway for women, youth and less well-financed teams to access the cup and build and get involved in the main competition. Or will people look at the AC40 and say, oh no, that was just the backdoor way that the bigger teams kind of worked in an angle for them to carry out two-boat testing again? Tell me what you think about that, and do you think the AC40s are really a cost-saving measure, or do you think it's another toy for the big boys to get an advantage?